Joining us now, Eric Trump, son of Donald J. Trump. Eric, good to have you with us.
Hey, John, how are you?
Now, you're going to be joining your dad in Ashburn today, right?
You can't wait. You know, Loudoun County is a county we know incredibly well. We have an amazing golf property there, actually, in the Potomac River, and I went to school at Georgetown, of all places, so I just, I know it very, very well and love the area.
Well, I tell you what, right up the street, and always good to have the Hoyas on, as always. Hey, look, I've had about 50 callers in the past day and a half, and they wanted me to tell you that they really want your dad to focus on the issues, and if we do that, we win. Look, Eric, the Democrats have no solutions to anything. It's an Obama third term. 70% of Americans think we're heading in the wrong direction. The economy is a disaster. We focus on the issues, we win.
Yeah, listen, I think I think maybe that's right. I think at the same time there's just a major double standard, and I'm seeing it for the first time. I'm not a politician. I'm not, but you see, let me give you an example, John. You have Pat Smith, who was the mother of one of the soldiers that died in Benghazi, and she spoke at our convention. And by all the networks, CBS, ABC, all of them, she was given 70 seconds of airtime. 70 seconds. You see the Khan family go on, and they're given hours and hours and hours and hours of airtime, and they're heroes. There's just no question about it. They're heroes. Anybody who sacrifices their life for our country and dies for our nation paid the ultimate price and deserves the ultimate respect. But it's just interesting how one story carries itself and the other doesn't. Especially when my father was totally anti-going to war in the first place. I mean, my father said so many times, if we go to war, it's going to destabilize the Middle East. And you see Hillary Clinton's policies and what it's done to Libya and what it's done to Syria and what it's done to Iraq, the formation of ISIS. It's cost our nation trillions and trillions of dollars and thousands of, our bravest men and women who have died on the battlefield. Not to mention what you see every single day in Orlando and San Bernardino and Nice. Yesterday or a couple of days ago, there was a priest in his church in France, and you had a couple radical, terrorists that went in there, Muslim terrorists that went in there, and they cut off this priest's head in his own church. I mean, what's happening around the world is unbelievable. I mean, you see it all over, and it's so ironic to me. So much of this has been due to Hillary Clinton's failed policies. And just remember one other thing, John. I mean, the whole time she's Secretary of State, between 2007 and 2014, Hillary Clinton made $141 million. She was Secretary of State at the time. She was a government employee. So she's going around the world, and Bill's going around the world. They're giving speeches. Their foundations being funded from places like Saudi Arabia, who are the worst oppressors of women, in the world. They're going around giving speeches for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars while the world is falling apart, while regimes are taking over and ISIS is forming. It's they clearly weren't focused on it. They were focused on lining their own pockets as opposed to representing our own interests. And it is so terrible and sad to see.
Well, the double standard is incredible, and you bring out Pat Smith. You're right. I was there at the convention on the floor, as you know, when she made that speech. She was crying. She said that Hillary Clinton lied to her about the death of her son, and you never heard from it again. Nobody played it, no clips, zero, zilch, nothing. And so the double standard is ridiculous. There's no question. I want to shift to the economy. On Friday, Eric, that's why I was anxious to get you on today. The gross domestic product grows by 1.2%. That's under half of what was projected. That's after a less than 1% growth in quarter one. If you look at any of these facts during history, it signals the fact that we're going back into a recession, and yet nobody is talking about this anemic economy that we have. Home ownership at an all-time low in 5 decades, the trade deficit higher than we've ever had, and your father has solid economic plans in order to get us back on track. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, the reason we have, no economic growth is because, our failed politicians allow all our jobs to go overseas and allow all our industry to move out of this country. I mean, since 2000, I say this stat every single day because to me it's so baffling. Since 2000, this country has lost 1/3 of its manufacturing jobs. And what happened in 2000 or 2001? Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. NAFTA was the greatest job-killing bill in the history of our nation. We've lost 1/3 of our manufacturing. And, this whole political process has really opened my eyes, John, because I've gone all over the country, pretty much every state with my father. And no matter where we go, we see empty, dilapidated factories, so literally shuttered factories. And, these places were once vibrant. They were making light bulbs, or they were making, some widget, or they were making X, Y, and Z. We don't make anything anymore. We don't produce anything anymore. Our trade imbalance last month, our trade deficit last month in June, actually, I guess in the month of June, not last month, but in the month of June, was $63.1 billion. I mean, think about that. The month before, it's $43 billion. I mean, how long can we sustain this before, as a nation, we're bankrupt, especially when we have no GDP growth, as you just said? So, and then you listen to Hillary, and she's talking about TPP being the gold standard of trade deals. We're going to lose the last 2/3 of our manufacturing jobs in this country if she becomes elected, and we end up signing TPP. I mean, even at the DNC, the Democratic Convention, there were people holding up signs that said, no TPP. It's truly astonishing. We don't put America first anymore. We don't put the needs of this country first, and it is so sad. And at the same time, we allow a country that has 1.2% GDP growth, which is horrible. I think it's the worst GDP growth we've had since 1949. You allow a country like that to also rack up massive debt. What do people think is going to happen? I mean, at the end of the day, these two curves are going to collide, and the United States is going to have a real problem.
No growth, a recession, $20 trillion in debt, and almost $70 billion a month trade deficit. These are astronomical figures that we've never had. And you're right. At some time in the very near future, they're all going to converge, and the whole thing is going to collapse. It's just a matter of time. Now, what your father has said is, look, we have to keep our jobs in the United States. We do that by getting rid of these ridiculous trade deals, by renegotiating NAFTA. Your father said that, and everybody dropped their wine glass on the elite set. I mean, the only people that have made money from NAFTA are the globalist elites that's destroyed the middle class, destroyed working class Americans. Now you got the same thing with TPP going on. And although Mrs. Clinton and Senator Tim Kaine, her VP choice, has now said he's anti-TPP, maybe I'd change his mind after debating it with him on the air 50 times. Terry McAuliffe, our governor, the other day came out and said, well, at the end of the day, we're going to make it happen. So which is it, right?
Well, it's interesting with Kaine as well. And, people always ask, they've been asking me for months, what kind of pick would your father, pick for VP? And I said somebody who's immensely, competent. And it's interesting. If you look at Kaine, obviously from your state and, from Virginia, and somebody obviously, we had read a lot about because we have a lot of property in Virginia. It's interesting. We saw it every single year that he was, that he was there. Taxes. Virginia had the largest tax increase in the history of the state of Virginia. At the same time, it's ironic that when he first came into office, unemployment was about 3.5%. When he left office, unemployment was about 8.1%. If you contrast that to Indiana, which has had an amazing track record, which is why my father, picked, Pence, unemployment started before he came in at about 8%, and it went down to about 3.5%. They brought on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs into the state. Every single year, and one of the promises he made was that he was going to reduce taxes, and he did. All while investing a lot of money in K-12 education, all while investing a tremendous amount of money in infrastructure. They've got one of the best highway systems in the country, in the state, and so on and so forth. And in fact, our veterans, our bravest people, Indiana had unemployment for veterans was 31%. Now 31 in the nation, right? They were ranked 31 in the nation. Now they have the second best state in terms of the employment of our veterans in the nation. Pence made that a very big priority. But the fact that Kaine increased taxes every single year in Virginia, versus Pence, who decreased taxes every single year, I mean, there's just a huge contrast between, the two people. And I think this country, and I think all our states and these industries that are suffering, need somebody who will go in there and reduce taxes and take care of infrastructure and take care of all the massive problems that we have. And we want somebody who's going to be pro-job growth. This country has 100 million people out of the workforce. We need to create jobs again. We need to bring industry back. And you simply can't do that when you have massive taxes, massive regulation, and are allowing all our products to go over to China, where they can be made for, where they pay people, $1 an hour to work in, unbearable conditions. I mean, America just can't compete, under these policies, and given the world's situation.
Oh, without a doubt. Let's get to your father's position on corporate tax cuts. It seems what Hillary has said is she's in favor of tax increases, although she hasn't said that. I don't know if she's going to pay for some of the things that she said. Your father's plan is to revamp our corporate tax structure, which is the highest in the world. Is that part of the plan to kind of revitalize investment back in America?
Well, listen, I think there's a lot of elements to this. I mean, let's start with the estimated somewhere between $3 and $5 trillion that's parked overseas, and by U.S. companies. U.S. companies have that money overseas because they know if they bring it back into the United States, it's going to cost them 50% in taxes to bring it back on shore. So everybody just leaves it overseas, and now that money is working to help bolster other other countries wherever that money is invested. It's called corporate inversion. So, the first thing my father would do is bring those, $3 to $5 trillion back to the U.S. And what that would do would be so phenomenal in every regard, right? I mean, it would help industry, it'd help infrastructure, it'd help so many different things. I mean, we could use that money for so many different things, investing in our own country. Second of all, you have to drop taxes. I mean, we just can't be competitive as a nation against all these other nations that have tax burdens that are so much lower, especially when these other nations have no regulation. If they want to go build a factory, they just go build a factory. They don't need to go ask for permission. It doesn't take them years and years. John, in the United States, and you know this better than anybody, more businesses today are shutting down in this country than are opening.
Right.
I mean, what a problem that is. I mean, when you have, again, those two curves colliding, it's just basic, economics, and it's just basic common sense. You can't have more companies shutting down than opening. And why is that? Regulations are insane. Taxes are insane. I mean, we allow jobs, and my father's talked about this so much with Carrier and Nabisco and Ford. We allow our greatest American companies to go 1 foot over the southern border, produce the same product, ship into our country free of charge, but take advantage of the fact that, again, in Mexico and in China and all these other countries, they're not paying wages. They're not, they're paying people, an hour, a dollar a day, to, and I say that facetiously, but they're, I mean, they're paying people so little, and, they can do whatever they want, and they don't have the regulation, they don't have the problem, and they can ship it into our country totally tax-free, and it's draining the economy of the United States, and we just have to stop it. So it is corporate inversion. It's bringing those couple $1 trillion back. It's figuring out taxes. It's lowering taxes. It's getting rid of regulation. And I think last but not least, you need to have great education in this country if you're going to manufacture. I mean, all the products that we're manufacturing as a world today, whether it be iPhones and computers, they're high-tech products. If you don't have an educated workforce, you can't manufacture those products. So I think you're going to need to take an education system that's ranked 30th in the world, and I think we're going to need to really focus on that and do something about it, and do that very quickly, and we owe that to our children.
Well, look, a real example of what you just mentioned with jobs going overseas, you have the auto manufacturer Ford plant moving from Michigan to Mexico. Average auto worker that they were paying at that plant made $25. These are good jobs for Americans. Average Mexican auto worker makes $5. So they manufacture the automobiles there. They save $20 an hour per employee. They ship them back over the Rio. They ship them up through San Diego on a truck. They get into the dealership, but you're paying the same amount. So the consumers didn't gain. The only people that gain is the Ford shareholders at the expense of U.S. jobs. And there's no tariff, there's no barrier, there isn't any tax, so why wouldn't they?
100%. I mean, 100%. You need to fix the business problem. Otherwise, that capitalism is going to work, and that's what's going to happen. And it's so sad. So, my father's a free trader, and he said that 100 times, but he doesn't like to get ripped off. And what's happening is we're being 100% ripped off at the behest of our people. And the reality is we can manufacture better than anybody in the world. We've got the best. We have the brightest. We have the hardest working. We have the most talented. We can manufacture better than anywhere in the world, but you can't expect to compete with other countries with your hands tied behind your back. And when other countries are manipulating their currencies, and when our politicians are getting in the way, you have to allow American capitalism to do what it does best. And I think that's my father's, very, very strong message.
Well, okay, Eric, we almost have to take off. Final question: how are we going to win this election?
Well, we're going to start in Virginia, and it's a state that means a tremendous amount to me personally. I run a bunch of our properties in Virginia. We have an amazing winery down in Charlottesville, Virginia. As you know, we have an amazing golf course in Loudoun County, and I really feel good about Virginia, and I know the state incredibly well, and we love the state, and I think we're going to do great there. And you see the polls in Pennsylvania, and you see the polls in Florida and Ohio, and it's been a long time since a Democratic candidate's actually had to go through Pennsylvania and make 100 stops. Normally, traditionally, the state goes a little bit blue, and I think we're going to carry the state this election cycle. And you've been a big fan of ours for a long time, John, and I plan on winning this for you. And believe me, my father will work tirelessly in this process. And when he gets in, he'll work tirelessly for this country because we need to fix our country. We are not going in the right direction, and everything we just talked about, is perfect examples of exactly that.
All right, look, we're going to be fine. I've been there, as you know, with you guys from day one, and it's all going to work out. You keep up the hard work. Thanks for being with us. Good luck today in Loudoun. We'll look forward to seeing you there. I want to thank Eric Trump for being with us today. Eric, it's always an honor to have you on, sir. Thank you so much.
John. Take care.
All right,
have a great
bye-bye.
day.
Yep.
Bye.
More information, DonaldJTrump.com. I'll be right back.